Hey guys, get out your lesson, Introduction to Ecology, and we're going to go over starting on page 10 where it talks about biomes. And then we're going to talk about habitats and niche. So follow along and highlight the sections that I have. It says, what is a biome? Each ecosystem has its own unique biotic and abiotic factors. Some ecosystems have a few plants and are cold and dry. Others have forests and are hot and moist. This wide diversity of ecosystems can be organized into categories. Large regions characterized by climate and the communities of species are grouped together in biomes. Basically, all it's saying is that the region has the same climate in that area. They also have the same plants and animals that live in that area. That's why they group them together. A biome can contain many ecosystems. Major land biomes include tropical rainforest, tropical grassland, temperate grassland, desert, temperate deciduous forest, temperate rainforest, taiga, and tundra. We're going to talk about the land biomes first, but there's also aquatic biomes when we talk about oceans, ponds, rivers, streams, lakes. What characteristics define a biome? All the ecosystems in a biome share some traits. They share climate conditions, such as the temperature and rainfall, and have similar communities. That means they have similar plants and animals that live there. So that's just basically how they say this is one specific biome, is because they have the same climate, rainfall, plants, and animals. So we're going to talk about the climate first. The climate can be temperature. Temperature is an important climate factor that characterizes biomes. Some biomes have a constant temperature, like the taiga and the tundra. Those temperatures stay cold all year long. Whereas in tropical biomes, they are warm all year long. In other biomes, the temperature changes over the course of a year. We live in a biome that has warm summers, hot summers, and cool winters, although this past winter was a little bit colder than normal. Temperate biomes have warm summers and cold winters. In some biomes, major temperature changes occur within a single day. Like in the desert, it can be scorching hot all day long, but then at night it can drop and be very, very cold. Biomes also differ in the amount of precipitation they receive. For example, the tropical biomes receive a lot of rainfall, while deserts have very little precipitation. The taiga and the tundra have moist summers and dry winters. Okay, so that was the abiotic part of the biome. That would be the temperature and the rain. Now we're moving into the living things, the plants and the animals. Biomes contain communities of living things that have adapted to the climate in the region. Ecosystems within the same biome tend to have the same species across the globe. So if in one area, rainforest, there are going to be certain animals. In another area, there might be another rainforest. They're going to have similar animals and plants because they can grow in those places and survive in those places easily. Only certain types of plants and animals can live in extreme climate conditions. Where it is very, very, very cold, the animals have adapted to living there. Their fur is thick and they are able to, they live on the food that's around them. In the desert, cactus and certain other plants can tolerate the dry desert climate. And you can see on your paper in color the world biomes, and use this key over here to see different places. There's not just one desert biome in the world. They're scattered throughout the world. Okay, so now we're going to watch a little video on biomes.
A biome is a biological community that is formed in response to shared physical climate. Biomes can be either terrestrial or land or aquatic. Up first is the desert. Deserts can be found in North America, Australia, and the southwest U.S. Here's a map of some of the deserts of the world. Deserts have very little rainfall. They can be hot or they can even be cold. Grassland. Grasslands are found in the U.S., Canada, Argentina, Russia, and even Turkey. They are dominated by grass. They have cold winters and hot summers and average rainfall. Savanna. It is similar to a grassland, but they are found in East Africa, South America, and they're known for having a wet and dry season and warm temperatures throughout most of the year. The rainforest, which is found at the equator, has little variation in temperature and lots of rain. The deciduous forest is found in North America, East Asia, Europe, and Norway. Many of the trees have leaves that fall off in the winter, and they generally have 4 seasons. A taiga can be found in Russia, Canada, Alaska, and Sweden. It is the largest land biome. You will find spruce trees and pines. They have short summers and long cold winters. A tundra has very little tree growth. It can be found in Russia and northern Canada and has low temperatures, which results in lots of shrubs and mosses. Under the aquatic biomes, you have the ocean. The ocean has high salinity and covers most of the world. An estuary is an area where you have the mix of salt and fresh water. And finally, under fresh water, it has a very low salinity, and you will find ponds, lakes, streams, and again, they have low salinity. So there is a list of some of the major biomes of the world. Thanks for watching and move.
All right. Let's go on to the next page, Home Sweet Home, and we have talk about habitat and niche. What determines where a population can live? Ecologists, people who study the ecology or ecosystems, ecologists study the specific needs of different kinds of organisms and the role that species play in the environment. Organisms that live in the same area have different ways of getting the resources they need. A niche, each population in the economy plays a specific role. A population's niche is the abiotic conditions under which an individuals can survive and the role they play in the ecosystem. For example, one of the shark's population's niche is eating fish. That's what they do. A habitat is a place. A habitat is a place where an organism usually lives and is part of an organism's niche. The habitat must provide all of the resources that is an organism needs to grow and survive. They need to have animals or plants that they can eat in order to survive, and that needs to be inside their habitat. Abiotic factors such as temperature often influence whether a species can live in a certain place. Biotic factors such as the interaction with other organisms that live in the area also play a role. For example, the habitat of a shark must include a population of fish so it can eat. Two populations cannot occupy exactly the same niche. Even small differences in habitat roles and adaptations can allow similar species to live together in the same ecosystem. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute when we read about the green and brown anoles. They sometimes live on the same tree, but they have a different niche. They have to avoid to keep from they live in different parts of the tree so that they don't, so they can survive. And over here is a picture of a little prairie dog. The prairie dog digs burrows in the grassy plains. They eat plants, and they are hunted by predators such as owls and foxes. The prairie dog's habitat is the grassy plain, and its prairie dog's niche is that it digs. It digs burrows in the ground for its shelter. It also eats certain plants. It could also, the holes that it digs can also become shelter for other animals and very helpful for them. And we're going to talk about those symbiotic relationships soon. And finally, the lizard invasion. These are the little green and brown anoles that live in South Florida ecosystem. The green anoles lived there for a long time, and recently the non-native brown anoles came in and invaded their space. So to avoid competing with each other for resources, they have come to live in the same habitat. They live in the same area, but they live in one lives in the top part of the tree, and the brown anoles live at the bottom part of the tree. Now, if they cross that line or get too close, they do have some competition, and the brown anoles will go and eat the green anoles young. But most of them know to stay in their lane. And then finally, the questions on the back. This one is 19. It says, ecology is the study of the biotic and abiotic factors in the ecosystem and the relationship between them. In the desert ecosystem, the sand is a biotic factor, whereas the lizard eating an insect would be a biotic factor. So make sure you circle the right one. Number 20, every organism has a habitat and niche. The horses that live in the desert feed on other organisms that live there, such as low dry shrubs. The example of the desert would be the habitat, that's the place, and the horse's feeding behavior is his niche. That's what he does. Number 21, the environment can be organized into different levels, including populations, communities, and ecosystems that we've already talked about. Population of cactus together with sand and rock, are included in a desert ecosystem. And the reason it's an ecosystem we know is because it includes a living, biotic, and non-living, abiotic. And that's what makes up an ecosystem. Biomes are characterized by climate conditions and the communities of living things found there. Biomes are large regions that contain ecosystems. They contain them. And in the desert ecosystem shown above, name a biotic factor and describe the effects on the horse if it were removed from the ecosystem. So here is our horse, and it wanted you to list a biotic, something living, and we know that the horse eats the dry, low shrubs. So if these living shrubs were removed, what would happen to the horse? Many people say they would die. Well, if they didn't leave the area, they would. The horse would lose their food source. So if they lost their food source, they probably won't hang around. They would leave that area, go and look for more food. Here is a quick video about habitats and niche that might help explain that a little bit more.
A coral reef can provide a habitat for different forms of life. This diverse array of organisms each carve out its own niche. Welcome to Moo Moo Math and Science and Habitat and Niche. A habitat is an ecological area where a plant or animal lives. It may be an island, a tree, or maybe even under a rock. This habitat is where an individual can find food, shelter, protection, or even mates. A niche is the role or position that an individual has in its environment. A niche may also involve what the individual eats, how it interacts with other living things, and also how it interacts with the non-living factors. Without ecological niches, there would be less diversity and the ecosystem would not be in balance. A quick example. I have taught at the same school and classroom for many years. This would be my habitat. I teach life science at this building, and this is my niche. Miss English teaches English, and Mr. K teaches social studies. We all live in the same habitat, the school, but we all have our own little niche. Let's take a look at some real-world examples. I live in a deciduous forest. Plants and animals occupy the same areas. Some animals, like the woodpecker, and several other species of bats, feed on insects. This helps to keep the insect population from growing out of control. Other animals, like a squirrel and chipmunk, could be considered spreaders. When they gather and store seeds and acorns and even berries, some get left behind, and some also get left behind after going poo. These seeds, like the blackberry bush, will grow into plants that provide food for other animals. The niches of plants and animals help keep their habitats healthy. Let's look at another example. The Galapagos Islands are islands located 605 miles to the west of South America. There are several different types of finches that live on the islands. Their habitat is the Galapagos Islands, and the different finches have their own niches. The different finches feed on different types of food. The warbler finch has a thin beak for eating insects. A ground finch has a short beak for eating seeds left on the ground. Cactus finches eat cacti seeds. Each finch has its own niche that allows them to survive and prosper in the same habitat as the other finches. Animals and plants all have very special roles to play in their communities, and the niches they fill help keep their habitat healthy. If you'd like to know more about habitat and niche, this playlist will help. And